Good morning. First and foremost, on behalf of the men and women of the Bernalillo County Sheriff's Department, I'd like to express our sympathy to the Griego family and send them our best wishes and our prayers be with them as they go through this time of grieving. Secondly, I'd like to take the opportunity to commend our deputies for the outstanding job that they have done and continue to do in regards to the investigation of this particular homicide. First of all, I'd like to talk to you about the timeline and give you some information on the timeline now as how we know it. Sarah Griego, the mother, was shot and killed by the suspect at approximately 1 a.m. on the morning of the 19th as she slept. 9-year-old Zephaniah was awake, distraught, and was killed shortly after that by the suspect. It appears that Angelina, the 2-year-old, was killed while sleeping. Jael, the 5-year-old girl, was killed and awake at the time of her killing, is our belief. The suspect, Nehemiah Griego, waited approximately 5 hours for the dad, Greg Griego, to come home, which would have been approximately 5 to 6 a.m. the morning of the 19th. We believe that he was shot unexpectedly and was unaware of what had already occurred in the residence. After that, we know that the suspect at this time spent the majority of the day with his girlfriend. The suspect went to his church, Calvary, at approximately 8 p.m. on the 19th. After certain discussions there, we know that our dispatch was contacted at approximately 9:15 on the night of the 19th, and our deputies arrived at the residence approximately 9:25, 10 minutes after the call came in. We also know at this time that Nehemiah had been contemplating this for some time. The information that Nehemiah had contemplated going to a local Walmart and participating in another shooting there is accurate. We have no information at all that Nehemiah ever went to the church to cause anyone any bodily harm there. We do have information that the suspect also contemplated killing of his juvenile's parents, his girlfriend's parents. No charges are pending against her at this time, but that part of the investigation is still ongoing. We know that most of the shooting occurred with a .22 rifle that had a barrel style ammo holder that held 10 rounds of ammunition. But the suspect also did use an AR-15 semi-automatic weapon in the residence also. The suspect was also in possession of 2 pistol grip style 12-gauge shotguns, but he did not use them in the commission of the crime. The motive, as articulated by the suspect, was purely that he was frustrated with his mother. He did not articulate that to our investigators any further or give any further explanation of that at all. The investigation continues as we speak. It's our understanding that the suspect will be arraigned at 1:30 p.m. this afternoon. We'll take questions.
Sheriff, have you been able to ascertain any potential criminal background or previous felony conviction for the father, Greg Griego, in this case?
We believe that there is an extensive arrest record of Mr. Griego, but we have been able to confirm, and we do not believe at this time that he was a convicted felon.
Who were the guns registered under?
Some of them had been purchased by friends of his and then sold to him as an individual, and I'm not sure of the others. I might confer to Lieutenant Covington if he knows.
Is that friends of Nehemiah's?
Yeah, friends of the father, Greg.
Okay.
So the guns were not in the home illegally?
No, they were not.
How many weapons in the home?
I believe there was 4?
Correct.
4 weapons. 4.
Did the father work a graveyard shift? That's why he had to wait for him? Yes, the father was at work.
Can you tell us where he'd been at work?
I believe he worked at a rescue mission.
Did the girlfriend know about these murders when they spent this extended amount of time together before they went to church?
It's our understanding she did.
Is that investigation still pending? What
Yes.
is it?
Yes.
Who made the 911 call?
I believe either a member or a person of the staff of Calvary Church.
When you searched that home, did you find any illegal drugs in the home?
No. I can tell you that the suspect was involved heavily in games, violent games. It's kind of what he was into, and was quite excited as he got the opportunity to discuss that with our investigators.
What kinds of games are you
Video
referring to?
games?
Video games? Do you have any specific
Video
titles?
games.
Any specific titles of video games? Any systems specifically?
Some of the titles discussed were like Modern Warfare, as well as Grand Theft Auto.
What about medication, psychotropic medication, Ritalin, things like that?
Nothing that we're aware of.
What has been his demeanor through the course of interviewing and stuff?
Very stern demeanor, very unemotional.
Did a Calvary security guard not make the 911 call until he got to the residence with Nehemiah?
I believe that I spoke with him yesterday. It's my understanding that he became very uneasy before he got to the residence. Clearly started feeling something was inappropriate before that. I'm not sure that he believed the suspect and what he was saying. And so he made the decision before he got to the home to reach out and have the deputies be en route to meet him there.
Was he in the car with Nehemiah? And
That's
all
my
the guns?
understanding he was, yes.
With the guns?
No, not with the gun. The guns were left in the suspect's vehicle.
Regarding Greg Griego, do you have any reason to believe that he was involved in any current gang activity?
The father?
Yes.
No.
Sheriff, can you tell us at all about where Nehemiah and the girlfriend had been for that kind of 6 or 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. period when they arrived at the church? Where were they?
I cannot. What I can tell you is that he did on a couple of occasions leave them for a while and then reconnect with them. But it's unclear to us of where he went or where all they went that day at this time.
So you say that he had plans to go to Walmart, but did he ever, within that time frame that you know of, go to Walmart and actually contemplate doing?
We do not know that. We just know that he clearly articulated that that was one of the thoughts that he had, and he contemplated during this time of period while he was waiting the possibility of going and ending this at a Walmart with mass destruction.
You mentioned this had been possibly premeditated for quite some time. How long are we talking about, and who may have known about this beforehand?
For at least a week building up to this event, he had made comments consistent with this type of activity.
Has Nehemiah given you any reason to believe that maybe he was a victim of abuse by his parents or anything of that sort?
No. Again, in the time that our investigators spent with him, it was just a very casual. He was just frustrated with how things were, and would not even articulate any further details of that frustration.
What things, what were what?
We just don't know.
Were there any other guns in the house? And the guns were described as being in a closet. Were they locked up at any point in time, or were they just sitting in the closet?
No,
loaded?
they were in the parents' bedroom, and that's, obviously he waited for his mother to fall asleep before he went into the bedroom, into the closet to gain access to the weapons.
And were there any other weapons beyond the ones that you just described to us?
No.
Who had he made comments consistent with this type of activity to in the week prior to the shootings?
That's part of the investigation that's still active, so we don't want to comment on that right now. We're still investigating who he might have told and what exactly he told them.
Did he tell the girlfriend?
That's one of the people that we're looking into at this time.
Do we know what time she received the picture of the deceased mother?
Approximately 1:00 a.m., the 19th.
So she knew that there was something that had happened, getting a message like that.
She did.
Could she possibly face charges for failing to report anything to you guys?
That's correct. She could be facing charges.
How old is she?
She's a juvenile. That's what I'll say at this
14,
time.
15?
She's approximately 12.
Sheriff, is there
What's your
any,
best
Did you say
judgment?
12?
Yes.
Any
Sheriff,
remorse
neighbors-
at all? We talked a little bit about his demeanor, but since the crime, has there been any remorse? Does he realize kind of the impact of what he's done?
Now, my understanding is that he was quite shocked at his arrest.
Did he show any frustration with teachers or with people at the church?
The family was homeschooled. No, we haven't received any information from the church congregation that there was any problems with the suspect.
You said there were no guns at that, or, I'm sorry, there were no drugs at the house, but is Nehemiah going to undergo any sort of testing to see whether or not he had any drugs in his system at the time?
No.
any history of mental health at all with him?
No.
There've been reports that the Griegos had as many as 10 children. Have you all been able to learn anything about the other 6 children?
We know that there's one 21-year-old daughter that's here locally. She had came down to the scene and spoke with investigators that night. And other than that, we've not had any other contact with any of the other children.
Is it your belief that the other 5 either don't live in the area or didn't live at that home at the time?
Clearly did not live at the home, neither did the 21-year-old that's actually here in Albuquerque.
It's been reported that Mr. Griego operated a halfway house. Do we know if he had a permit or any of the sorts in order to operate such a facility on property?
I do not know if he had the proper authority to run the halfway house
Is that
at the
something-
time that he did.
Is that something you would look into, or? is
Not
that
at this,
fall under a different
it's
agency?
irrelevant at this time, and it's my understanding that it had been quite a while since they had been doing that.
Sheriff, is there any indication that his time spent with the girlfriend was able to mitigate any further violence from happening at the Walmart or elsewhere?
I wouldn't be able to speculate on that.
Sheriff, what's your best judgment then as to motive? You know, you mentioned frustration and gains. What is the sheriff's department's best judgment of what the motive was?
There is no best judgment from us. This is beyond any human reasoning or understanding at this time.
Do we know why he went to church? Has he explained why he went to church instead of carrying out this plan at Walmart?
We would have to speculate, but he wanted to go talk to somebody, and so he went to make contact with people that he was familiar with at Calvary.
Had he been to the church at any other point earlier in the day?
We don't know that.
In the statement of probable cause, it mentions this idea of him losing his conscience after killing the mother and the son. What do you believe he meant by that? What is that an accurate statement?
The statement in the statement of probable cause is accurate. I would have to speculate, and I'm not willing to do that, of what he meant. That's just simply what he said.
Some of the neighbors have described Mr. Griego as having very erratic behavior in the time before his death. Marching around with a shotgun around the property and
The victim?
saying violent things to his kids.
We're not aware of that, sir. I haven't received that information.
Did mental health professionals aid the detectives in speaking with the young man? Since it's clearly.
There were mental health professionals on scene from the onset of this investigation. They participated in the investigation.
In terms of the video games, there have been some reports from neighbors and other folks who lived around that this family didn't allow their kids to play these kinds of video games or watch these kinds of movies. Do you have some sense that he was doing this sort of underground, unbeknownst to his parents? Or what more can you tell us about this? Because it seems to kind of contradict some of the published reports so far.
What I can tell you is he played those types of video games per his own admittance, and that he enjoyed playing those types of video games. Whether he did it without his parents' knowledge, I don't know. But I know that he played those games on a regular basis.
I'm sorry if this has already been asked, but did he give you specific titles of games?
It has already been asked. One of the games that he talked about was Modern Warfare, and the other one was Grand Theft Auto.
You say he played them often, are we talking an obsession where it was up all night, or are we just talking on a, regular basis like a normal teen might play these games?
All I can answer is that he said he played them on a regular basis. I don't know to what extent.
How many times did he shoot each of the victims?
Multiple times, except for 2 of them. I believe 2 of the victims just had one gunshot wound.
Which
The
two?
others were, I believe the mother was, no?
The 9-year-old brother was shot once that we know of. This is still ongoing. OMI is doing the investigation as well. So we believe that the 9-year-old boy was shot once, as well as one of the sisters. But again, this is an ongoing investigation by the Office of the Medical Investigator. So we'd rather not speculate on all of the rounds that were used and how many times people were shot. We know that, it appears they were shot multiple times, the majority of the victims.
Multiple, are we talking half a dozen, more or less, in that range? Or?
Again, it's a process to investigate and evaluate all of the gunshot wounds, and that's being done by the Office of the Medical Investigator. But more than once or twice.
I know more than one weapon was found at the place. Was more than one weapon used in the shootings?
Yes. Yes. Again, the majority of the shots, we believe, with the investigation still pending, was done with the .22, but the semi-automatic AR-15 was used.
Sheriff, of the 10 children, 5 have been accounted for, including the 21-year-old that visited the scene. Have the whereabouts and the safety been determined on the other 5?
No, not to my knowledge.
We have spoken to numerous family members throughout the investigation, including at least one of the other children. It's our understanding that the adult children are not, do not live at the home and may not even live in Albuquerque. But the investigators are constantly interviewing people and in close contact with the family.
But all 5 of the other children are adult in age?
As far as I know, yes, ma'am.
Do we know how much access or how many ammunition he had access to and with him in the van?
He had numerous rounds of .22 ammunition inside of the van. There was also a small amount of .223, which is AR-15 type ammo in the van. More .22 ammo than there was .223.
Just so I know that I'm reading the probable cause statement correctly, it seems to indicate that the first 4 victims were shot with the .22 and that the father, several hours later, was the one shot with the AR-15. Am I reading that correctly? At least preliminarily from what it looks like?
I would say that preliminarily is correct, but again, referring back to the Office of the Medical Investigator, they'll determine exactly what caliber of ammunition caused the wounds to the victims.
We'll
It
take
sounds
2 more
like-
questions.
It sounds like he had very easy access to all these weapons, ammunition. What kind of message do you think this sends to parents here in our community?
Well, I don't know, again, it's our understanding that, that the father shot with them and him on a regular basis. I don't know if it was a hobby or what their motive for that was, but clearly he articulated that he had been taught the use of the weapons by his father.
I heard this morning there's a chance he may be tried as an adult. Can you discuss that?
I can't. That would be more appropriate for the district attorney to speak to. What I can tell you is that, again, it's my understanding that he will be arraigned this afternoon at 1:30 on the charges.
One last question. I'm not sure it got answered completely earlier. Nehemiah did have a UA.
I'm sorry?
He had a urinalysis test. He had a test for drugs or alcohol.
No, he did not.
That seems odd to me. Is there a reason for that?
We had no indication of any alcohol or drug use throughout this investigation. Absolutely none. We did not conduct a UA to my knowledge.
Sheriff, did he have any connection to gangs, South Valley gangs?
The suspect? No, not to our knowledge at all.
Sheriff, where does this crime stack up in terms of other high-profile cases you've seen over the years?
Well, I mean, I've seen some of the ones that you have mentioned in some of your local reports. You know, I had the overhand case in Paradise Hills where I believe he was 16 at the time, killed his parents and buried them out in the backyard. We had the young man that shot his father with a bow and arrow at about approximately the same time. And so, you know, it's horrific. What other word to use? I mean, this is certainly the first time that I've been into a crime scene with this much destruction at one home, for sure.